Good morning and welcome to a wonderful Wednesday. We are here for our weekly read aloud. And I was just thinking this is our first read aloud of the new year. So a very happy new year to you. It is 2022 and Just Us in Books is happy to be here with you another year. I also want to shout out Miss Sydney Howard. Today I am rocking my Saved Swag apparel. And Miss Sydney Howard is owner and operator of Saved Swag. So thank you to Miss Sydney Howard and Saved Swag Apparel for the awesome sweatshirt. All right, today we are going to start off the new year with a wonderful book. The name of this book is called The Dream Gardener. The Dream Gardener. And I'm just going to bring that cover forward so that you can really get a good look at it and make some predictions. What do you think The Dream Gardener is going to be about based off the cover of this book? What predictions can you make about the story? All right, so I hope you're making some good predictions. Let's find out about The Dream Gardener. Here we go. This is the story of all stories. It starts in another world, in a land with a beautiful name that no one knows. Once upon a time in that land, there was a little house. An old man lived in the little house. He was so old that he could no longer remember how old he was. He might have been 100 or even 1,000 years old. He wore a funny hat and had a bushy white beard. A pair of glasses balanced on his nose and bounced around as he rapidly pressed the keys of a noisy typewriter. It was an old metal machine, and some of the keys, the ones that spelled once upon a time, were almost worn out. There's something you don't hear very often anymore. A typewriter. He's doing all of his work on a typewriter. When the man had finished writing, he pulled out the paper and left his house, ready to cross that land with a beautiful name that no one knows. The old man looked around until he found the perfect spot to do what he needed to do. You can't just wish for the perfect spot. Everything has to fall into place. That day, everything fell into place. An east wind blew, the moon would be full that night, and lightning had just struck the earth. The man found the ideal spot, a little piece of land in a sunny area perfect for growing something. What could he be growing? The man planted the page, and then every day he returned to take care of it. He spent hours, then weeks in that spot. Finally, something sprouted. It was small, but he knew it would grow. He spent more hours there, and then the hours turned into days, and that little sprout grew into a beautiful tree with a strong trunk and a dense crown of leaves. Interesting leaves, aren't they? Those leaves were actually pages with writing all over them. The pages had words everywhere, page after page, and each one gave new life to characters who were too wonderful to be real. The man decided the moment had arrived. The leaves were ready. He began to harvest all the pages, collecting them in a wheelbarrow. The more pages he gathered, the happier he felt. All right, I heard that word harvesting. He is harvesting those pages. The man worked and worked and worked until the tree was completely bare. As he headed home, his wheelbarrow rocked from side to side. It was so full. The pile of pages looked as if it might topple over at any moment, but he made it without losing a single page. The next morning, the man began to sew. He sewed page after page, hundreds of pages. He bound them together between thick covers using cotton thread and a long needle. The man worked for hours and used spool after spool of thread. Finally, he was satisfied. It was time to set his books free into the world. He opened the window, and after a few minutes, the books took flight. One after another, they lifted off and disappeared into the air, like birds flying south for the winter. The books beat their pages like wings. They flew over the land with a beautiful name that nobody knows. They soared over the hot desert, but they did not stop there. They shook off the sand that had gotten caught in their pages and crossed above oceans and seas, but still they did not stop. They flew on and on in the heat of the sun and the light of the moon. They did not stop. When the book's pages were a little worn from all that travel, they reached the city. Finally, it was time to land. Where are they going? Where do we think these books are going? They are finally landing. The books had arrived at their destination, an old library. The walls were covered in floor-to-ceiling shelves full of all kinds of books in every size and color. The books from the land with a beautiful name that nobody knows entered and made themselves at home in that wonderful jumble of stories. A child wandered among the many bookshelves. At a certain point, he looked up. His gaze landed on something almost by accident. It was a big, heavy, hand-sewn book that was resting after its long journey. The child reached out a hand, and when he touched that special book, something changed inside him. He took down the book and began to read and turn the pages. He didn't want to stop. No one knows exactly what the words in that book were. Perhaps it was a story of a puppet carved from wood who begins to talk, or a young knight who finds a magic sword. Maybe it was an adventure that begins with a rabbit who was always late. No one will ever know exactly what was in that book, but the child kept his face pressed close to its pages for hours. He didn't want to miss a word. He read until nighttime without stopping. Time passed quickly. He would have kept reading forever, but he grew sleepy. When he finally nodded off, the story that had started in the pages of the book kept going in his dreams. He dreamed a story of characters who were too wonderful to be real. This is what happens when you dive into the stories of a land with a beautiful name that nobody knows. Indeed, maybe the same thing has already happened to you. The end. The Dream Gardener. And I'm just going to read the back of the book because this perfectly sums up this story. It says, a love story about books and reading. Inspire a lifelong love of reading with a story that opens wide the doors to the imagination. And that's exactly what books do. They open up the imagination and they can take you anywhere you want to go. Love on books and enjoy books. I hope you enjoyed this one today. Just us and books.